I have to say that it is a great honor to open this panel. Just to introduce a little bit 300 and 1,000 kilometers per second. We are a group of architects and urban planning studio based in Barcelona. We mainly work with cities, and we understand the idea of cities in its multiple scales. So we work with small neighborhoods, but also with large territories. And what we do is to provide data analysis on several topics that I would say are relevant in every city in the world. So we focus on our main lines of research, cover from innovation and economy, trying to understand how innovation and economy work in the city, to more intangible ideas, like, for example, poverty or landscape. And what we try to do, I don't have the 20 minutes counter here. Working? No, it's not working at all. So I go on, okay? So what we try to do at the studio is to draw urban phenomena from a double perspective. When I mean draw, I mean we represent it graphically. First, because we want to understand them better. But second, and I would say more important, we would like to, we would like to influence the stakeholders which are related to the city functioning and help them to make better data-driven decisions. And that's because we really think that future cities should be very, very, very different than the ones we have today if we want the world to remain habitable, and of course, we want to live better. And we also think we are in a very, very exciting moment for cities, because we have cities of two velocities. We have cities like Barcelona, which had completely stopped, more or less stopped growing, where urban fabric is almost consolidated, and population remains stable. And we have these other realities, these other cities. We have slums, we have high rates of increasing population, and in these cases, reality is going faster than urban planning. So, it comes clear that in front of these two contrasting situations, we need to adapt the tools of urban planning, we need to adapt the methodologies of urban planning. And I assume that some of my colleagues, because I have some friends in the round table, are going to explain us how citizens are adapting to these changes, or how technology can help us with urban problems. But sorry, because the PowerPoint is running beside me without control. But what about planning? How can urban planning respond to these contrasting situations? As we have seen with these two different examples, on the one side, we have to plan new developments or decide not to do it, but we had also to manage what is already existing. And some of us, I think, or all of us can think in some examples in our cities where urban planning, it's late, no? Or it comes like a patch or a palliative solution, or even a facilitator of some process going on, some process that sometimes are unplanned processes. So if we want to respond, no? If you want urban planning to respond to these contrasting situations, we need to retrieve its role, no, as the driver of a long vision of the territory. We think we need to definitely overcome the pressures of stakeholders involved in all the transformation process to be able to generate new ideas, new scenarios. And let me use here a very, very old example. No, this is the plan, or the previous plan Santamaria of Barcelona. And he was able to, to envision, to think a city that has to be 10 times bigger with intelligent infrastructures. Oh, sorry. Qué rollo, eh? And no, the idea of urbanity that support this project was so strong that it has proven the resilience, the capacity, the flexibility to adapt to 200 years of changes. And why this project has proven this capacity? Because it was based in a systematic data analysis of the city. Sorda, you know, studied the streets from multiple points of view, from the section, the latitude, the orientation, the type of pavement, the street lighting. So there was a massive study of how existing city was. So working with data, it's not something new. In fact, there are some images here of the statistical yearbook of Barcelona, one of the best we have got. Okay, when we were able to know, for example, the electric consumption of each neighborhood of the city per every month, okay, or even know how many children we had at a school, male, female per school. That's more information than the one we have in the current open data portal of the city. So working with data, it's not new, and the situation today is that we have more data, we have more accessibility to this data, and we have more capacity of manipulating and visualizing this data. And that's really important, because it opens up newer scenarios for us, architects and urban planners, to design city without or accompanying from outside public administration and private companies. And also having this data make us shift from a traditional way of planning cities that has to do with form, with morphology, and we can add a new layer, which is the behavior, which are interactions, which are relations, which are even emotions. So in this equation, where traditionally form made a city, we have on top this part of behavior, how they use the form, and how can we adapt this form to these new uses. And that means that in urban planning, what we need is new layers of analysis and intervention to be able to shift from blocks to tweets, for example. Be able both to understand which are the tangible and intangible aspects related to the city. And that makes also this availability of data give rise to new questions, or can give rise to new answers to questions the city has already faced. And let's take, for example, the idea of demography. Normally, what happens is that population is related to this idea of the residents, of people living in a certain area of the city. So what we normally did, this is a series of maps we had made as an analysis of the previous new regional plan of the metropolitan area of Barcelona, is to represent population inside each block of the city. So you can see more light areas, more density, darker ones, less density. And what is interesting here is these holes, areas where we have no population. If we zoom in some of these areas, we can see an emerging landscape of offices. So having no residents doesn't mean we don't have population. All of us wake up, go to work, make our daily activities, and we spend most of our time in our workplace, not at home. So we need to add these workers. This is the same cartography, but here we are not representing residents, we're representing workers. And here we superimpose both. And another idea comes up, which is who belongs to a neighborhood. Is the people living there, or is the people working there? So demography starts being not a static concept, but a dynamic one. And then we have juries. This is a really nice image of a space in Barcelona where we have this mix between residents, workers, and tourists. They are another layer in this temporality of demography. They are not maybe the same, no? One week we can have French, more American. They are not the same, but they are a permanent, a floating population in the city that we need to count. They have become permanent. And as we can see in this image, this is a study, a research we had made from one of the main banks in Spain. This is a representation of the credit card use of tourists in Madrid. These tourists have a very important impact in public space. And they have even a very specific spatial pattern. But normally, what we do to measure the influence of these tourists is to count where are they sleeping, no? In hotels and in touristic facilities. What is important is to understand the impact they have in the streets, which is the influence. But city is not only about housing, it's also about economy. City has to have these productive activities. And it's very important, and thanks to data, we can understand which type of activities do we have in the city. We have a mix of industry and housing and commerce and offices. And how they mix, how they should and not mix, and regain this idea that economy is a urban question. Having an economic success impacts on the quality of life of people. So, the same, no? If we know, it's important to know the activities, but it's also important to know which kind of companies do we have in the city. This is a research we made for Barcelona City Council, and these red dots are the amount of innovative activities we have in the city. And it's interesting to understand this ecosystem, to understand the spatial patterns this ecosystem deploys in the city, if the startups relate to main companies and to research centers, and how the certain urban conditions, as rentals, as accessibility to public transportation, and so on, can make these processes or can make this economic activity more fluent, more vivid. In the same regard, we can find other situations, no? When studying commercial synergies between neighborhoods in Madrid, we discovered that as the same way the urban fabric can help to economic activity, there are certain areas, as the one, as the black holes in this drawing, that do completely the same. So they are certain urban conditions that inhibit completely this economic activity. So mixture is something that it's interesting to have in the cities, but also we have the counterpart of it. When we mix certain activities in a certain way, we can have conflict. And it's something we are experiencing here in Barcelona with the nocturnal places in the city where we have this mixing of hotels, but also restaurants, but also nightclubs, no? And as you can see, we have these black areas in the city center where we have this conflict of use. And that also means that we have to introduce another idea which is important in urban planning, the idea of time. Not the long time I was talking at the beginning, but the idea of the short time. That the city is something that has a metabolism, that this metabolism is something that changes every day, every hour. And so, this traditional representation of the city based on form, it doesn't help us to explain this idea of the evolving city during day. This is a study we have been making for 5 years. We have that now has a very new interesting step, which is studying the nocturnal landscape of the city of Barcelona. And we have started from the point of view, this more metabolic point of view of the city flows. This is a representation of the taxis in Barcelona in orange during day, in blue during night. So we can see that this city has flows, has certain areas that activate during day or remain hidden. The same for the activity, we can monitor or we can study taxis, but we can also study the activity of people via the interaction you made on Twitter, on Flickr. And that's the resume we tried to do in here. In every block, you have the activity of citizens, blue for night, red for day. So we see that there are certain areas that have this arrhythmic behavior, or some others that have this 24 hours behavior. And that starts, in terms of planning, to be very interesting, how to face this flexibility that the city has. But in the same way, we have these two behaviors, we have these two different images, We have a city during day, which is very hierarchic, and then at night, something new comes up. Landmark change, you can see Akbar Tower. So we have these two perceptions of the city. And here what we try to do is precisely, using this cartogram, trying to understand which were the permanencies and which were the changes between these two different realities. And that was really, really challenging to understand how can we represent identity in the city. That is the same map of interactions, but filtered according to the TAC Barcelona. The image of the city is maybe one for me, one for you, and maybe one for people from outside Barcelona. So this idea that identity is something that changes over time, but it can change depending on the person. So we open up a full scenario where this idea of identity based in monuments, or in the collective, the collective memory based on the objects has completely changed. This is a map of the heritage of Barcelona we made like 3 years ago. In red, you see what are the important or the landmarks that are classified as heritage. So they are supposed, to be this collective memory. Some of them are still at risk. So, but the idea that people have of Barcelona is really this one. So here we can see a very important shift. This is a map of Flickr, of Flickr, the way you tag photographies on Flickr. So Barcelona expands to a whole territory around the city. So just to sum up, because I have 2 minutes left, data is open a lot of possibilities. A lot of possibilities to represent both these tangible and intangible aspects of the city. Also to give different answers to all questions, but to raise new ones. And even if we want to be, we are very positive on the power of data. It happened that we have been like consumers of what public administration or the information of public administration is producing or private companies are producing. But we believe we have to be active in this data creation because there are still a lot of situations in the city which are not digitized. And extreme poverty is one of them, but also the way that neighborhoods or citizens are moving in the streets. So the last project we had made in the studio consists on this, on trying to describe behavior or collective behavior. This is participative project on a street in Barcelona with the paths of all the neighbors. And our most recent project, which is a cartography, a paper project. We work mainly with digital tools, but this is a paper tool that helps people count people who's sleeping in the street. So join us in this work of having more data. I encourage I think that here today we have talked a lot about citizens, but I think that we architects and planners, we had to take also the responsibility to be involved in this data gathering and, and manipulation processes. So thank you.